The quantum paradox of silence. Why nothing is not empty. In quantum manifestation, silence carries a meaning far deeper than simply the absence of noise. Culturally, people often think silence is emptiness, something awkward, boring, or even uncomfortable. But in a quantum sense, silence is the inner zero-point field, the space where all potentials exist before becoming reality. It's the internal state where the mind stops projecting, the nervous system stops defending, and the field becomes perceptible again. The nothingness a person feels when they finally slow down is not dead space. It is a container of pure possibility. Physics calls this the quantum vacuum. Spirituality calls it the fertile void. And everyday life calls it those rare moments when clarity arrives without being forced. This paradox makes more sense when you examine ordinary experiences. Many Americans joke that their best ideas come in the shower or during a quiet morning commute. That isn't random, it's physics and neurobiology at work. When the brain stops cycling through noise, the subconscious and the intuitive layers finally have room to speak. Insight rises not because someone tried harder, but because they temporarily stopped trying at all. In silence, the nervous system enters a state of openness, the mind exits survival mode, and the body naturally shifts into coherence. It's like switching a radio from static to a clear signal. The message was always there, but the noise was drowning it out. Quantum silence behaves much like the vacuum in physics, which appears empty but is full of invisible activity, particles blinking in and out of existence. Inside a person, silence works similarly. Even when nothing seems to be happening, emotional patterns are being reorganized, beliefs loosen their grip, and deep intuitive intelligence becomes accessible. This is why practices involving stillness, meditation, mindful breathing, quiet contemplation, or simply sitting in nature often lead to breakthroughs. Not because silence adds anything, but because it removes interference. The person becomes available to the field again. Silence is the space where identity softens and new identity begins forming. It's the interval between exhale and inhale, the pause between a thought dissolving and the next one arising. In that gap, the nervous system resets, and the person reconnects to a deeper intelligence beyond analytical thinking. The void no longer feels like something to escape, but something to return to, because it becomes the birthplace of clarity, creativity, and alignment. Many people fear silence because it reveals what they've been avoiding. But once they understand its power, they realize it's the only place where the next version of themselves can truly emerge. Silence isn't a dead end. It's the door to everything they can create. The quantum field and the vacuum, nothing as the matrix of all possibilities. In quantum physics, the vacuum isn't empty. It's the most active nothing in existence. It's a sea of invisible energy where virtual particles appear and disappear constantly. This emptiness is actually a dynamic field full of potential waiting to be shaped by frequency. When applied to personal development, the quantum vacuum becomes a metaphor for the silent space inside each person. It's the internal environment where old patterns dissolve and new possibilities begin to form. Americans often describe moments of deep clarity as feeling like a clean slate. That's the subjective experience of accessing the inner vacuum, the mental and emotional reset point where all futures exist before any single one is chosen. When someone quiets their inner world, they begin to resonate with the same principle that governs the vacuum, potential without form. The field isn't deciding anything yet. It's simply offering infinite options. This helps explain why silence can feel both peaceful and unsettling. Peaceful, because there is no pressure. Unsettling, because there is no direction yet. The silence inside mirrors the quantum vacuum outside. Everything is possible, but nothing is chosen until consciousness interacts with it. This is why meditation, mindful breathwork, or even a quiet walk can shift a person's entire emotional state. They temporarily enter the field of potential, and from that place, reality becomes malleable again. The quantum vacuum also highlights an important truth. Creation does not begin with effort. It begins with availability. Just as physicists observe particles appearing out of nothing, A person's new ideas, insights, or emotional breakthroughs often emerge from inner emptiness, not from mental force. Think of moments when someone has been wrestling with a problem for days, only to have the solution appear during a moment of silence, folding laundry, sitting at a red light, or pausing between tasks. This is what it feels like when consciousness taps into the vacuum. Solutions are not created, they arise. The field was always offering them. Silence simply cleared space to receive them. And here lies the deeper secret. The quantum vacuum responds to the frequency of the observer. When the inner state is chaotic, the field feels chaotic. When the inner state is coherent, the field begins organizing. It's not the silence itself that creates. It's who the person becomes inside that silence. This is why the concept of nothing generating everything is far more literal than poetic. The vacuum is the canvas, and consciousness is the brush. Once someone understands this, the next logical question emerges. If the vacuum contains limitless possibilities, what determines which possibility a person aligns with first? Mental noise versus conscious silence. The role of attention. Most people think that silence comes from switching off external sound, but the real challenge is quieting the internal noise. Mental noise is the constant stream of thoughts predicting, remembering, analyzing, and worrying. It's the background chatter that never seems to stop, especially in modern American life where stimulation is everywhere. Emails, notifications, traffic, deadlines, news, podcasts, and the endless scroll of social media. When the mind is overloaded with this noise, attention becomes scattered. And in the quantum perspective, scattered attention sends scattered signals to the field. It's like trying to watch 5 TV channels at once and expecting a clear picture. Conscious silence, however, concentrates attention into one coherent frequency, one that the field can actually respond to. To understand the difference, think of the brain as a flashlight. Mental noise makes the beam shake in all directions, lighting everything and nothing at the same time. Conscious silence, on the other hand, steadies the beam and points it at a single intention. This is why people get random insights in the shower or while driving quietly. They inadvertently enter a silent state where the beam finally stops shaking. Conscious silence doesn't mean suppressing thoughts. It means not letting thoughts drag your attention like a dog pulling a human at the end of a leash. When someone becomes the holder of the leash, the mind stops running the show. Attention becomes a tool again, not a tyrant. The role of attention in manifestation cannot be overstated. In quantum experiments, the observer effect shows that attention influences outcomes. In human life, attention influences emotional states, decisions, and the probabilities someone aligns with. When a person practices conscious silence even for 30 seconds, they reclaim their attention from autopilot and place it back into intentional awareness. Breath becomes clearer, emotions settle, and intuition becomes accessible. And if this content is helping you understand how attention shapes the field, support the channel by liking this video and subscribing to Quantum Genesis. Your engagement strengthens our work and allows us to bring more high-level teachings to people seeking deeper consciousness. Attention is the gateway through which reality takes shape. Noise fragments it, silence concentrates it. When people finally experience conscious silence, they often describe it as feeling more themselves or more present, because they're no longer lost in mental simulations. In that quiet space, they regain the ability to choose rather than react. They notice the world without drowning in it, and as attention becomes more stable, the person begins to influence the field with increasing precision. This leads naturally to the next insight. If silence stabilizes attention, what specific state allows the field to actually hear the intention behind it? Coherence and the neutral state, where the field finally listens. In the quantum model, coherence is the point at which the mind and heart stop arguing and begin speaking the same energetic language. The neutral state is not emotional numbness or indifference. It is the absence of internal conflict. When someone enters neutrality, their nervous system shifts into regulation, their physiology relaxes, and their internal frequency becomes steady. In this state, the quantum field can receive a clear signal. because the person is no longer broadcasting mixed messages. Think of it like calling customer service. If the line is full of static, no one understands anything. Neutrality is the moment the line finally clears. The field now hears your intention. Many people think neutrality means not caring about outcomes. But in truth, neutrality means not forcing outcomes. It's the subtle but powerful shift from "I need this to happen" to "I am aligned with the possibility, and I don't need to control it." When the nervous system relaxes, the emotional charge that distorts reality dissolves, making space for clarity. A person in neutrality doesn't feel anxious about time, pressure, or comparison. Instead, they feel grounded, present, and open. Everyday examples include the calm you feel after a deep exhale, a quiet walk before a big decision, or that peaceful moment right before falling asleep, when the world finally stops pushing against you. The neutral state is also the gateway to what HeartMath calls heart-brain coherence, where the electrical rhythms of the heart synchronize with the brain's waves. This creates a measurable electromagnetic pattern that is smooth, harmonious, and consistent. In this state, intuition sharpens, decisions become clearer, and emotional reactivity drops. When the heart and mind are coherent, the person stops leaking energy into worry, rumination, or emotional turbulence. They conserve frequency, and as a result, the field responds more directly to their intention. Many people describe coherence as feeling like everything inside clicked into place, as if their inner world is no longer fragmented. Neutrality is the birthplace of manifestation because it is the only state where the person stops arguing with reality. They stop pushing against what is, and instead allow new probabilities to arise. In quantum terms, they exit survival frequency and enter creative frequency. And the moment they stabilize in this state, the field begins reorganizing around them. Synchronicities increase, intuition becomes louder, and small signs begin pointing toward their desired timeline. Naturally, this leads to the next insight. If neutrality opens the channel, what emerges from that channel first? And the answer might surprise people, because it's not the manifestation itself, but the intuitive intelligence that guides it. The nothing as the matrix of intuition, when answers arrive without effort. Intuition is often misunderstood as a mysterious gift that only a few people possess. But from a quantum perspective, intuition is simply what rises from the silent space beneath thought. When someone enters true inner quiet, the mind stops recycling old information and finally becomes receptive to new patterns emerging from the field. This is why the best ideas often appear when the person is not trying, during a quiet drive, on a morning walk, or that moment staring out the window between tasks. In those seconds of mental spaciousness, the brain shifts into a more open frequency, and the nervous system stops bracing for the next problem. Intuition isn't a lightning bolt. It's what emerges when internal noise stops drowning out deeper intelligence. Quantum physics describes the vacuum as a place where information exists before form. Intuition works the same way. It delivers information before logic can explain it. A person may suddenly know they shouldn't take a job offer, even though it looks perfect on paper. Or they may feel drawn to call someone, only to discover that this person had been needing them at that exact moment. These experiences aren't supernatural. They are the natural result of interacting with the field from a state of alignment. Intuition is the language of the quantum vacuum, soft, subtle, and precise. It doesn't shout because it doesn't need to compete with anything. When the person quiets down enough to listen, the answer is simply there. In everyday American life, intuition often shows up as gut feelings. Something told me, or I can't explain it, but I just knew. But behind these expressions lies a deeper mechanism, the body and the field communicating long before the mind catches up. Studies show that the heart senses changes in the environment seconds before the brain does. This means intuition is not a poetic metaphor. It's a measurable interaction between human physiology and the quantum field. When someone practices silence, they tune into this information stream more consistently. They stop depending solely on logic and begin navigating life with both intelligence and wisdom. The result is fewer forced decisions and more actions that feel naturally aligned. The more someone enters the silent space, the clearer their intuitive signals become. Answers arise without tension, directions appear without confusion, and decisions feel smoother because they come from a place deeper than thought. Intuition becomes a reliable companion instead of a random surprise. And once a person begins receiving intuitive guidance consistently, a new question emerges almost naturally. How can this silent intelligence be used intentionally to rewrite old subconscious patterns? Before we move on, share your thoughts in the comments. You ever experienced a moment when intuition gave you the answer before your mind understood why? Silence as a reset of programs, clearing the unconscious noise. Silence has a unique ability to reveal what the mind has been hiding. Most unconscious programs operate automatically, running beneath awareness like background apps draining energy. These programs shape emotional reactions, expectations, and the lens through which reality is interpreted. But the moment someone enters true silence, the noise of these programs becomes more noticeable. Thoughts that usually blend into the mental clutter suddenly appear in high definition. Beliefs once accepted as just the way things are begin to lose authority. Silence acts as a spotlight, illuminating patterns that normally go unquestioned. When someone sits quietly, the mind's rehearsed stories rise to the surface, and this is where transformation begins. In quantum terms, unconscious programs are like old frequencies the person continues to broadcast, even when they consciously desire something new. Silence interrupts these frequencies. It's similar to unplugging a device that's been glitching for years, allowing it to reboot without corruption. When someone stops feeding their habitual thoughts with attention, those thoughts weaken. The emotional charge behind them dissolves. A person who always believed "I'm not enough" may notice that in silence, this belief feels less solid. Someone who constantly expects rejection may find that, in stillness, the expectation softens. Silence removes the momentum that keeps old programs alive, giving the subconscious space to recalibrate. This reset effect explains why so many breakthroughs happen during meditation, quiet reflection, or even simple mindfulness practices. When the nervous system relaxes and the mind stops looping, the brain shifts into states associated with healing, integration, and emotional processing. Long-held patterns begin to unravel. Someone who feels stuck in a cycle of stress or self-sabotage may experience a moment of unexpected release, a deep exhale, a sudden clarity, or even tears they didn't realize were waiting to come out. These experiences are not signs of weakness. They are signs of recalibration. Silence allows the body and subconscious to process what constant mental activity keeps suppressing. As unconscious noise dissolves, the person begins experiencing a lighter, more spacious internal world. They react less and respond more. They feel less controlled by old survival patterns and more connected to their inner intelligence. Silence restores agency. It shows that the person's identity is not the sum of their thoughts or memories, but the awareness beneath them. And the more someone practices entering this reset state, the more they begin to consciously choose which programs will run their life. Naturally, this leads to the next stage in the journey. Once old patterns dissolve, how can someone intentionally program new codes into the silent field to create a different reality? Intention in the void, planting creation codes in the silent field. Once the mind grows quiet and old programs begin dissolving, the silent space inside becomes fertile ground for new creation. Intention set from the void is fundamentally different from intention set from fear or desperation. Most people make decisions while stressed, overwhelmed, or emotionally charged, which means they plant seeds in turbulent soil. But when intention rises from true silence, it carries coherence and clarity. It isn't forced. It feels natural, almost obvious. In this state, the heart and mind align, the nervous system relaxes, and the quantum field becomes highly responsive. The intention becomes a creation code, not just a wish. This is why silent intention often manifests faster than repeated affirmations or mental effort. To understand this in everyday terms, imagine deciding on a major life change, switching careers, leaving a toxic relationship, or starting something new. When someone tries to make this choice from anxiety or pressure, confusion increases and outcomes feel unstable. But when they spend time in silence and allow the noise to settle, the right direction often emerges effortlessly. It's not that the situation changed, their frequency changed. The silent state acts like a tuning fork, aligning the intention with the highest timeline available. Many Americans describe the moment as something just clicked, and that click is the moment the intention finds resonance with the field. Planting creation codes in silence also gives emotions time to align with the desired state. This is crucial because the quantum field responds to coherence, not contradiction. If someone says, "I want abundance," but internally feels fear, the field responds to the fear. But when someone enters silence and stabilizes into calm, gratitude, or possibility, the emotional frequency matches the intention. This is why so many manifestation teachers emphasize feeling as the key element. But the truth is deeper. Feeling becomes coherent only when silence dissolves internal conflict. In silence, the person finally accesses the emotional frequency that matches the reality they want to create. Once the intention is planted in the silent field, the next step is not action but trust. The intention begins interacting with the quantum vacuum, reorganizing probabilities long before results appear in physical form. People often describe subtle signs that follow: synchronicities, small insights, intuitive nudges, or shifts in perception. These are indicators that the creation code has been received, and as this process begins to unfold, the person naturally wonders, how does the invisible shift in the field begin taking shape in reality? And what does the transition from silence to form actually look like? From silence to form, how probabilities collapse into reality. In quantum physics, probabilities exist as waves until they are observed. Once the wave is interacted with, it collapses into a definitive state. Manifestation follows this same pattern. When someone plants an intention in silence, they activate a wave of potential outcomes in the field. The wave is not the result itself, it is the beginning of a direction. Most people expect instant physical results, but the field responds first with subtle realignments, shifts in mood, changes in perception, sudden clarity, or small coincidences. These signs are often dismissed because they don't look like the big result. Yet they are the earliest indications that the probability wave is collapsing toward the intended timeline. A practical example can be seen in relationships. Someone may set a silent intention to attract a healthier partner or repair an existing relationship. The first signs of collapse might not be the arrival of a soulmate or a perfect apology. Instead, they might notice themselves setting clearer boundaries, losing interest in unhealthy patterns, or feeling more at peace alone. These internal shifts are not delays, they are the prerequisites for the external form. The wave collapses inward before collapsing outward. In the same way, a person manifesting abundance may first experience more discipline with money, unexpected opportunities for learning, or even moments of introspection about their financial beliefs. Another sign of collapse is synchronicity. Synchronicities are the breadcrumbs showing that the field has begun organizing reality around the new intention. Someone thinking about changing careers might suddenly meet people in the field they're drawn to, see repeating symbols that confirm their direction, or receive random information that supports the path. The mistake many people make is treating these events as coincidences, but when viewed through a quantum lens, they are evidence that the timeline is taking form. The invisible is becoming visible one clue at a time. Each sign is the field saying, "Keep going. The shift has already started." Eventually, the probability wave collapses into material reality, often appearing faster and more elegantly than expected. This doesn't happen through force, but through alignment. When internal coherence becomes stable, the external world matches it. Life begins showing up with a sense of timing and precision that feels almost orchestrated. And once someone understands that form emerges from silence, not from pressure, they naturally ask the next question. If the field is already shifting, how should they act? What kind of action aligns with the new timeline instead of sabotaging it? Aligned action. When doing less creates more. Aligned action is one of the most misunderstood aspects of manifestation. Many people think manifestation means just think positive and wait, while others believe they must grind endlessly to prove they deserve what they want. But in a quantum framework, aligned action exists between those extremes. It isn't passive, and it isn't forceful. It arises naturally when the internal state matches the desired timeline. The reason it feels effortless is because it emerges from coherence, not pressure. A person in alignment doesn't scramble for answers. They recognize the next step the moment it appears, almost as if the path lights up only when they're ready. This is not laziness, it's resonance. To make this real, imagine someone wanting to transition careers. If they're out of alignment, every attempt feels exhausting, sending out resumes compulsively, trying to impress people, or overthinking every decision. But when they first settle into silence and coherence, the next step feels different. They might feel an intuitive nudge to reach out to one person, update one page of their portfolio, or search for something specific at the exact right moment. And suddenly, that single step leads to unexpected connections, openings, or timing that feels uncannily precise. That's aligned action. It produces disproportionate results because the action is taken from the correct frequency, not from fear or urgency. Aligned action also feels lighter because it doesn't require fighting internal resistance. When someone forces themselves to act while they're energetically out of sync, they burn enormous emotional fuel. But when coherence is present, action becomes a continuation of the internal shift, not an attempt to compensate for misalignment. In practical terms, aligned action feels like curiosity rather than pressure, clarity rather than confusion, and readiness rather than anxiety. It's the difference between pushing a boulder uphill and walking downhill with gravity on your side. People who experience this contrast often describe it as the universe meeting them halfway. As someone begins practicing aligned action consistently, life takes on a sense of rhythm. They no longer obsess about controlling outcomes because they trust the guidance that rises from silence. Their actions become more intentional, their energy stays preserved, and opportunities amplify. The person realizes that manifestation isn't about doing more, but about doing the right thing from the right state. And this realization naturally leads to the next key insight. If action must be aligned to sustain flow, what kind of environment supports this alignment and prevents someone from slipping back into old patterns? Silence, environment, and the collective field, protecting the inner space. Silence doesn't live in isolation. It thrives inside an environment that supports it. Even when someone develops a strong inner practice, the people, places, and energies around them influence their frequency. In quantum terms, every environment has a field, and that field interacts with yours. Walk into a chaotic room and notice how your chest tightens. Step into a peaceful space and observe how your breath deepens. This isn't just psychology, it's physics. The electromagnetic field of your heart responds instantly to external stimuli, adjusting your internal state before you consciously process anything. This is why maintaining a healthy internal silence requires becoming intentional about the external fields you allow yourself to inhabit. In daily American life, environmental noise is constant. Phones buzz, news cycles stir anxiety, and social feeds amplify emotional turbulence. Even well-meaning people can unknowingly interrupt your coherence with their stress, fear, or negativity. This doesn't mean people should avoid relationships, but it does mean they must become guardians of their internal space. Just as someone chooses healthy food, they must also choose healthy environments, places that reinforce calm rather than chaos. This can look like spending more time in nature, creating a quiet corner at home, or limiting exposure to high-intensity digital noise. When the environment supports silence, the inner field stays coherent. On a deeper level, silence also interacts with the collective emotional field. Every group, town, workplace, household, or online community has its own vibrational signature. When someone enters a collective field filled with fear, competition, or urgency, their nervous system responds automatically, even if they don't consciously agree with that energy. This is why a calm person can feel stressed within minutes of entering a hectic environment. The inverse is also true. Entering spaces of quiet, kindness, or coherence can restore internal silence without effort. People often underestimate how much their environment is shaping their inner world, assuming their stress is purely personal, when in reality, they are absorbing external frequencies. Learning to protect the inner space means making choices that honor your silence. This might involve saying no more often, choosing environments aligned with your intention, or giving yourself micro moments of stillness throughout the day. These aren't luxuries, they're energetic hygiene. When silence becomes a daily anchor, a person stays connected to intuition, coherence, and flow, no matter what happens around them. And once someone understands how the environment influences their internal field, a deeper question begins to arise. If silence guides us into alignment, what happens when we face the inner fear of sitting alone with ourselves? The fear of the void. Facing the silence without running from yourself. The void should be the simplest place for the human mind to enter, but for many people it becomes the most intimidating. Silence exposes what noise successfully hides. When someone finally sits with themselves, without distractions, the mind reveals old emotions, unprocessed memories, and fears that were tucked beneath the surface for years. This is why people often resist meditation or quiet time. They aren't afraid of nothing. They're afraid of what the nothing will show them. Yet from a quantum standpoint, the void is not punishment. It is cleansing. The field uses silence to bring unresolved frequencies to the surface so they can dissolve. What rises isn't there to haunt. It's there to heal. Most Americans are conditioned to fill every empty moment. Long lines demand phones, commutes demand podcasts, and mornings demand instant stimulation. Stillness feels unnatural because society equates busyness with productivity and worth. But the moment someone stops running from themselves, something powerful happens. The noise loses its grip. A person who used to fear loneliness may realize they were never truly alone, only disconnected. Another who feared thinking too deeply may find that their thoughts become gentler once acknowledged. Silence doesn't create discomfort, it reveals it. And once revealed, discomfort becomes manageable instead of mysterious. Facing the void becomes easier when someone understands what's actually happening neurologically. When the brain enters stillness, the default mode network, responsible for rumination and self-judgment, begins to deactivate. Emotional patterns stored in the amygdala loosen. The nervous system shifts into parasympathetic states that support healing. In simpler terms, silence turns off the mental alarms that kept old fears alive. This is why so many people unexpectedly cry during meditation or feel waves of relief followed by clarity. The body uses stillness to finish emotional processes that were interrupted long ago. What feels like fear of the void is often the beginning of emotional detox. Once a person learns to sit with themselves without fear, silence transforms from a threat into a sanctuary. The void becomes a place they return to willingly, not reluctantly. They begin to understand that everything they feared inside the silence was holding the very key they were seeking: freedom. And as silence becomes a consistent part of their life, a final truth emerges, one that brings together every topic explored so far. If silence contains the blueprint of reality, how does someone use this blueprint intentionally to create a life that flows without resistance? The silent blueprint, manifesting from the quantum nothingness. Every manifestation begins long before it becomes visible. It starts inside the silent blueprint, the layer of reality where emotion, intention, and coherence merge into a single frequency that the field can interpret. When someone reaches the deep stillness beneath thought, they enter the same space from which all physical reality emerges. In that space, there is no resistance, no old story, no expectation to meet. There is only vibration, and vibration is instruction. This is why the void is so powerful. It bypasses the limitations of the conscious mind and delivers a clearer signal to the quantum field than any affirmation or visualization could. Silence becomes the language of creation. Manifesting from this blueprint doesn't require drama, repeating mantras endlessly, or forcing emotions that don't feel real. Instead, it asks for three simple things: clarity of intention, emotional coherence, and trust in the unseen. When these three elements align, the field reorganizes itself with remarkable precision. Someone wanting to heal a relationship may feel a shift in their emotional posture, which organically influences their words, timing, and interactions. Someone wanting abundance may suddenly receive intuitive nudges toward opportunities they never noticed before. The manifestation often appears subtly before it appears dramatically, because the field collapses inward before collapsing outward. This process is not magical, it is lawful. To manifest from the silent blueprint, a person must return to that quiet internal ground repeatedly, not as a ritual, but as a way of being. The more consistently they access silence, the more stable their vibrational signature becomes, and the less life feels like a series of random events. They begin noticing synchronicities not as coincidences, but as confirmations. Their decisions become cleaner. Their energy becomes lighter. Their actions become aligned without effort. And life, which once felt like an uphill battle, begins unfolding with the smoothness of a river finally set free from obstacles. In this state, manifestation no longer feels like creating something new, but simply tuning into what already exists in potential form. As you begin to integrate this understanding, something important happens. The way you move through the world naturally shifts, because now you recognize that the field doesn't respond to force, but to coherence born from silence. And if this content brought you clarity, insight, or expansion, I invite you to support this channel with a like and a subscription. It helps this message reach more people who are ready for this level of quantum awakening. Allow this knowledge to keep regulating your vibration as we move forward into the next themes, because the field is already adjusting to what you have chosen to feel and become.